Welcome to today's show. We're glad to have you here with us. Before we get started, I want to say hello to our listeners in Broomfield, Colorado. We so appreciate you tuning in, and I see you coming up on our stats week after week. So thanks for staying with us. If there's a topic you'd like to hear about, please let us know. Today's topic is signs of a dark attachment. I should say this is Rozlyn Reynolds, and I'm Ivory, LaNoue. We're the Sedona Soul Sisters, and we see clients from all over the world. And this is Roz's, like, at least one of her specialties. I wouldn't say it's our only one, but certainly is a specialty of yours. Do you want to try to deny that, Roz?
No, I just have to roll with it.
Every time she tries to deny it, her angels say, "Oh no, you're not done. You're going right back into the fray.
Let us send you this problem," they say.
They let me out. Pretty much. They let me out after the 90s. They're like, okay, you don't have to do that. So let's talk about it. What would you say are the signs of a dark attachment?
Number one, first and foremost, is you will have an immediate sense of just like almost like doom hanging in the background. And I can always attest to the fact that it alters your frequency dramatically. And I'm like everybody else. I mean, I occasionally get into these situations where the dark is on my trail and trying to hang on my energy field. And my moods when that is going on, it's so stressful, and you can feel that. You can feel the emotion of that, but you have to just be really perceptive about where your frequency is going, how your perception is working, how you're seeing things, because any kind of dark energy field, dark entity attachment, any of that immediately shifts everything in your field. And I always have myself in a white light bubble, and I work on that every morning before I start working, and I work on it all the time. But I still can just have a mood swing and go into frustration, cranky.
Do you think that's when dark is trying to attach to you?
Yes.
So Roz, are you saying, and I just want to clarify on this, that when you feel like darkness is trying to attach to you, you feel a sense of oppression?
Yeah. And a sense of just negativity. I wouldn't call it evil, but I definitely would say it is a very negative energy field. And because of so many years of this, I can certainly identify it the minute it starts. And I have to start talking to myself and saying, whoa, wait a minute. And I have to start thinking about, did I drop my guard? Did I not have my white light bubble in place? Was I not asking daily to be shielded and protected? Did I go into a location where this would be a strong possibility? And that does happen. So all of these things we have to look at. And I know in my case, I'm just looking back on the number of times when I've seriously had to just get myself grounded, cleared, rebalanced, etc. You can most definitely feel that when it starts happening to you, and you got to be paying attention.
With clients, I think the first thing I notice is a personality change, an attitude change, and sometimes it's even in their reactions, the things that they say in reaction that's not like them. And that makes me go on guard so that I am more alert to other signs with them. And I know you and I have talked about this multiple times. I'll never forget the first time I saw it, but I was on a distance session, like, on Zoom or Skype or something. And I was talking to a gentleman, and his partner wondered if he was possessed or had an attachment. And as we're talking, I saw a dark shape rise up from his shoulder like this, like a head looking at me, and then go right back down into his body. Like it was a dark shape. And I went and talked to you right away when I saw that. I'm like, I just saw a dark attachment. I saw it raise its head from that person. And then I've seen it since then. And not even always with clients, but sometimes out in public, I'm seeing more and more of this kind of stuff. I don't want to, but I know you've talked about that. And I think you see that frequently.
Yeah, very much so. And this is also part of the reason why I never feel I can relax. Like I can't let my guard down for a moment, because out in public, I mean, on the streets, in all kinds of public locations, I can look at somebody's eyes and know immediately,
What do you see?
it's not pretty.
Now, are you talking about attachment or possession now?
Well, it usually starts out more in the attachment level.
So even there, you see it in their
But
eyes?
I can, and it makes me very, I would say, cautious. Suddenly I'm thinking, okay, pay attention, because you can't be drifting off and have these things come into your energy field. And I actually, because I stay in the white light bubble theory, and I try very hard to have my energy field, in that sphere. And if I'm not thinking about it, or I end up going somewhere where there might be an attraction for these kind of entities to be hanging around there or coming in on their person that they're sucking energy from, basically. I have to be really conscientious with that.
Roz, is it when it comes to the eyes, and I know people will be interested in this, is it something about the appearance of their eyes, or is it something else for an attachment?
I don't think so much it's the appearance, although when you get into like a full-on possession and they are being controlled by this presence, definitely the eyes take a completely different look. But I think it's more just, I don't know, maybe it's more something that I feel or
I
something.
wondered, like maybe looking into the eyes are the window to the soul. And if you've got an attachment,
Yeah.
you're going to feel it.
So I have, I have a lot of, I would say, conscientious observation with these sorts of things. And I feel like what's going on right now, there's portals that are wide open now that have, unfortunately, what I call dark and negative, the dark and negative entities coming through those portals. So it's a very important time to be perceptive and pay attention and be cautious and just keep yourself very grounded so that you're not really approachable even by these beings. But sometimes it happens.
I know for me, it's like sometimes I'll be around a person and very quickly I feel I just have to get away from them. And I just honor that feeling because I don't see anything specifically in their eyes with an attachment, but I feel something isn't right. And I don't want anything to do with it. and then I'm just going to avoid that person because, and often this is out at stores. Oh, my angel ears started ringing. It's out at stores, out in public doing things. And I'm
Yes.
not interacting with the person. They're just there near me. And I just feel, I recoil from their energy.
Well, I think one thing we have to acknowledge is when you have this sort of perception and you have exposure to these entities, you have to be really on your guard because we all have some vulnerability. Maybe that's in our naive approach to things. I mean, I'd like to think that things are always lovely, wonderful, and everyone can be helped. You can help people with self-healing and rebalancing and all of those things. But you have to be honest with yourself. And I always tell people this, I'm not the person really doing this. I'm talking all the time, mostly to Jesus. And, asking for assistance, asking for support, asking to be guided, etc. So I think, we have to acknowledge to ourselves that, yes, I mean, we do have an ability, we have a power within ourselves. We have to be in that power, but we also get a lot of help from our guidance.
I'm thinking back to that oppression thing, Roz, and I do think that I had an attachment when I lived in that house in Sedona where there was the demonic presence attached to the land, and I was under such intense attack. And at the time, I just thought I was beaten down emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, for sure. And so I got depressed and I felt hopeless. But looking back on that, I really think it was an attachment. And I just feel lucky I was able to get out of there finally before it went into something worse than that. But it was a feeling I'd never felt in my life. Like I don't tend to depression, and I tend to be optimistic in my view, but I did feel hopeless at that time. Like I'm just going to die in this house. This is going to be it.
Well, and people need to realize this is the other thing. People need to realize and acknowledge that there is the potential for paranormal events going on all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on where you are. It depends, like that particular situation of that house and all the energetic manipulation that had been done to that land, and all of the what I would describe as very dark presences coming in and out of portal, that area behind the house where there was most definitely a portal. And these are things there's a lot of people that are, I think, naive would be a good word, but there's a lot of people who simply don't know the potential for these things, and they don't realize that they're vulnerable.
And I think that if I don't dabble in witchcraft, if I don't do black arts, if I don't do heinous acts, the dark will never bother me.
Boy,
I wish that were true.
Yeah, nothing could be further from the truth than that. I mean, I have worked with so many people who innocently moved onto a piece of property. When they first went there to look at it, it felt so good. Yeah. Because the dark is pretty good at manipulating and
enticing you.
Energy feels.
If they want you to live there so they can suck off your energy, they're going to entice you. They're going to make it seem really good. That was true for me. That place seems so great.
True for a lot of people, I mean, this is, I can't even acknowledge fully the number of people that because I've been encountering these situations and having people bring them to me since probably the 80s. And all across this country, you know, there are multiple frequencies, multiple dimensional frequencies going on these lands at all times. So don't kid yourself that you can't innocently walk into an energy field that has the potential to support other frequencies where you have other beings and entities and different things going on. And in the old days, you know, before we had email and everything, people would actually fax me, like they would take pictures of their property. And I would say, okay, just send me the picture. Or sometimes I would say, just give me the address. But as soon as I would see the picture, I would be able to say, okay, do you see this? See this over here? See that, look up in your upper window. And it was amazing. And a lot of that stuff, of course, goes on in very, very old buildings where there's tremendous retained spirit energy. So we, at least now we have, like on YouTube and on television, we have a lot of recognition that these things are going on. But I in a situation like yours and like some of the other clients that I worked with, where you innocently went into a property, it felt wonderful because they made it feel that way. And the minute you got in there, things start going nuts. You're getting all kinds of paranormal stuff. I remember I had one client who moved into this house. It was an old farmhouse. And the very first week she was there, she came downstairs one morning and her all of her furniture on that lower floor had been moved, was in a completely different position.
Wow.
Than she had placed it in. And you know, that would really flip you out.
Especially if you live alone. It's one thing
Yeah.
if your partner couldn't sleep, you know, had a little insomnia, we're familiar with that, went up and rearranged furniture. But if you live alone and you come downstairs and all your furniture has been rearranged, that is going to be a wig out moment.
Yeah. So these are all things that at least now, yeah, we have verification of these things. We have documentation because everybody has a camera too. So that's a great thing.
We've turned into Japan with that, where everything's on film, cameras everywhere. Roz, you said that you can see it in people's auric field. What color is it? Or does it show up that way?
Sometimes, you know, I can see people's auric field sometimes very clearly. Other times it looks kind of like a rainbow, kind of like there's different colors moving in and out as their energy field shifts, etc. But usually when somebody has, I would say, their energy has been altered, and they are experiencing numerous events around them, it does look like kind of like a dark cloud.
Over the top of their head or like around the whole aura?
Sometimes it's around them, their entire aura. But sometimes it's just sort of clinging to, you know, their shoulders, head, etc. And that is when I would really envision, you know, their eyes looking very different. I mean, it's a very strange kind of shift. You know, it's not, you know, it's paranormal. I mean, you can't put it into any other category.
Do people come to you and say, I think I have an attachment? Or do people say, I think my brother, my daughter, my son, my husband has an attachment.
Some of both.
So,
I have some people that I work with just based on a family member approaching me and saying, do you think this is happening, or this is really weird? These are the things that are happening. What do you think? In order to really work with anybody, this, I mean, we have to have the intention of that person to be helped. I actually try to not work with people who do not have any intention of getting help. They like it.
yes,
They're happy there. Their family members probably aren't happy.
they're
But
getting something out of it, right?
yeah, there is a benefit for them. So,
So if someone wants help, what do you recommend?
well, depending on their background, their history, what's going on, etc. Sometimes I do recommend that they see a professional in the psychology or psychiatric, because there's a very strong crossover between some of these paranormal events and mental health.
Mhm.
And you certainly experienced that in your career as a mental health professional. So that's a factor. Sometimes I feel when people have a strong religious background, whatever that religion is, or philosophical background, whatever that is, that they seek a professional, someone in the
Like a
capacity,
priest, a pastor, minister.
yeah, to get assistance. Because I feel like we have to be open and we have to be aware that, when people are experiencing these things, they're not nuts. They're not crazy. They think they are, but they're actually really experiencing true frequency shifts, and it's affecting their whole life. So, I'm certainly not anyone who has any training of any of that.
Yes, you are.
Well,
Life has trained you. Your work has trained you.
well, that from a standpoint of paranormal events, absolutely. But anything further than that, professional psychology, psychiatry, priests, etc. And it's really interesting because there seems to be a strong correlation for a lot of people when they start getting into seeking help, and how that impacts their life too. And I have had, many experiences with people where they know something's going on, but they don't know what it is, and they don't know how to address it. And as you know, I mean, I do not do property clearing or land clearing. I do land analysis, so I can look at a piece of property or go on a piece of land and say, okay, this is what happened on this land. There's water here, there's metal here. That's more of a dowsing kind of a thing. But there is a spirit that lives here. I can see them, I can hear them if they want to talk to me. Sometimes they don't like me very much.
Do they say awful things to you?
Yes, sometimes if they feel threatened.
Mhm.
So I think when we look at all these things and we realize that if you're considering moving to a piece of property, it's kind of a good idea to check that out, especially if you go there and you feel weird. And weird is such a non-descriptive word, but if it doesn't feel good to you there, that's something to really think about. Because it can either feel not at all comfortable, or you can have the experience you had and some of my other friends and clients have had, where they went into a house or got onto a piece of property they were looking at purchasing, and it just didn't even come up. They never felt anything.
I think I told you the lady who rented that house before me was still living in it when I looked at it. And I vividly remember her watching me intently, but I liked her, and she turned out to be someone who worked in the spirituality field. And later, when I was going through all this and we were trying to stop the demonic entity and the attacks, and I got back in touch with her, and she said, I was so worried when you came to look at that place, and I was watching you to make sure to see if you felt anything, because she really isn't psychic, but she felt something there, and it's why she was leaving. And she wanted to make sure whoever moved in there didn't feel it. I actually was like in it. Remember the emotional state I was in then. So I came out of a very traumatic, long experience, and I just needed to recover. And so I ended up in this house, from the frying pan into the fire, where I don't think my intuition was clear as it could have been at that time because of the trauma. And I think that's how it was able to lure me in and make it feel good for that time, going in and looking, and for maybe a couple weeks of living there, and then all hell broke loose.
And the interesting thing, that point right there to me is extremely interesting, because I find this with a lot of situations where people are telling me everything felt good. And then as soon as I got in there, got the keys and got moved in, within days or weeks, everything started going crazy. And I have to say, you had some of the wildest adventures going on.
Thank you.
In that house.
Thank you. I'm kidding. I'm being facetious, because I would have liked to bypass that entire adventure. I appreciate all the help you gave me. I actually had help from Roz, from a shaman friend, from another professional shaman, and her Native American medicine woman mentor, and just things I would do on a daily basis, trying to keep the salt line intact and trying to keep my frequency as high as possible, but it kept injuring me. And I kept going deeper and deeper into pain. And I think when you go deep into pain, it's very hard to keep your frequency up. So what I did was I started praying to God and asking my angels, get me out of this place.
Absolutely.
Remember that as quickly as possible, because I'd been told if I didn't leave, I was going to die. And I already thought that. And within 2 weeks, a miracle happened, and the ball was rolling, and I was out of there quickly. So I tried to do it on my own. I tried to make it happen. I tried to be independent, but there's times when you're in a situation like that, when you have an attachment, when you're under attack, don't try to do it on your own. I think it's madness to try to deal with such a crazy situation by yourself.
Well, and it's always good to realize too, that, there's a method to these events. And when they're attaching to you personally or your property, there's a method there that they function on. And it's definitely about raising the bar constantly. And that was certainly the situation in that location where you lived. Like, I remember you would text me in the middle of the night, and you go, okay, the closet door is shut, and all I can hear is things falling everywhere and things rattling. And
or the elephant, it felt like an elephant would ram the side of my house right on the other side where my sofa was, and the whole house would shake, and it was just
madness. What a crazy situation.
Yeah, I'll write that book. I will.
I think you should. Because the thing about this, and I've tried to get people to really realize, you did not create this. It was there when you came. It's probably going to be there when you leave, because I've had a lot of people over the years where I've had to say, you got to move. And I said it to you. You got to get out of here.
Yeah.
And the real bottom line is, when you have that knowledge and you've been experiencing all this, and you are being guided, shielded as much as possible by your work and your efforts and everything, I don't think it's a situation where God is not serving you, Jesus is not serving you, your angels aren't there. It's just a reality check that this is at such an intense level that you just have to go now.
Oh my God, the angels were more active in that house than I've ever seen them. Well, I would say tied with another circumstance in my life where they were showing themselves like giant white flashes of light of protection when I would be under attack, and big white arcs of white light. And I would hear chimes every morning. I'd wake up to angelic chimes that there was no explanation for in my house, day after day after day. And I just took it very much as encouragement and reassurance I was going to be okay. They're watching over me. And I don't know how. My daughter would say, Mom, I don't know how you can sleep in this situation. And I'm like, because of the angels, because they're on it. What can I do they can't do to protect me? So I do think tapping into angelic protection when you have an attachment, when you think somebody you love has one, I do think it's really important.
Absolutely.
And pray that it doesn't go to the next level, because an attachment left attached easily goes to possession, right?
Pretty much.
And we know what that looks like.
And
have we ever covered that in the show?
It's not pretty.
No, it's not pretty. Have we talked about that though?
I don't remember.
I'll have to look. If not, I'll have to put that into the schedule, but not next week. You don't need 2 weeks in a row of this. You need to digest this, and we got to uplift you again. But anything else you want to add about this topic today, Roz?
I just would say, if you feel like you're experiencing this, I always recommend to people that the number one thing they do is research, if possible, where you are, where you're living,
The land, the house.
The house itself.
Mm-hmm.
Start asking some questions, start seeing what the history is, so you can get a better idea. I mean, not to put it so bluntly, but I mean, obviously, if you move into a house and it's the Amityville horror or something, hello, that's a huge factor. And it is really good to pursue that research before you move in. But, we're not thinking about that. We're not thinking this is coming.
Roz, I think about it, as you well know, because when I was lucky enough to get to leave, I actually had Roz come by my current house where I live now and check it out. And she's like, oh no, it's good. It's neutral energy. I'm like, I just needed an outside person to tell me that. And I trust Roz on that. And I felt safe, and it has been a good neutral place. I feel like I finally can start healing in the 3 years I've been here. Before that, I was in survival mode for, oh my gosh, over 10 years, way 11. It's a long time.
Yeah, it is.
So you can also look up Roz on our website and see her services. Just she can help you with many of these type of circumstances. Hopefully today you feel like you get a good idea of what it looks like when someone has an attachment. So if you think somebody has one, you understand what's going on and the severity of it. And please, if you want more information about us or our services, visit our website, sedonasoulsisters.com. Subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss a thing. Next week, our topic is ending the reincarnation process. We're revisiting that because we had it scheduled and couldn't do the show because of circumstances beyond our control. So we're doing it next week. And in the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.